everyone, it's Ellie here. Today we're going to be working on my Asuna cosplay from Sword Art Online Ordinal Scale. I absolutely adore Asuna's character and I'm really excited to cosplay her again. I'm going to be wearing this to the Sword Art Online Summer Festival at Anime Expo. It's actually happening today, so if you happen to be at Anime Expo, be sure to stop by. Let's get started! So I was invited to help out on this panel just about a week before it happened. So I was in a bit of a crunch for time. You might notice that video footage is either missing or just not that great of an angle just because I wasn't paying attention to it. As always, we're going to start by cutting this out. Like I said before, I have made this costume before and the fit of the dress was good while the material was not. So I was able to just take apart my dress and copy it onto this new material. This is like a thick, almost denim material that I got from Walmart. It was like $2 a yard, which is a great deal. And since it's so thick, I don't need to line it, but I want all my seams to be finished. So I'm going to be doing flat felt seams like we did on the pants of my Ray costume, which will be linked above. To do a flat felt, you fold one edge over, stitch it, and then flip it over and stitch it again. It's confusing, and like I said, I didn't take the best video footage of this, so go check out that Ray video if you want to learn how to do a flat felt seam. And once the dress was put together, we had to add the black panel, which again was being added with a flat felt seam. You'll notice that this panel is pretty wide. This dress actually does have a big box pleat in the middle of it, so I'm going to be putting that box pleat all the way up the front of the dress, just so that way it's continuous and it does add a bit of structure as well. So here we are adding that box pleat. I've marked out where I want it to go and I'm just going to run a straight stitch all the way up. And once I decide where I want the hem to be, I'll go back and tack the end. So now that we have everything put together, I've added a zipper at this point. Now we're going to put the shoulders together. Again, another flat felt seam. I swear this whole thing is pretty much flat felt. Now we get to move on to our sleeve. This was just a basic pattern that I freehanded that I use all the time. So we go ahead and we flat fell the sides just like everything. I swear everything on this costume is flat felled. I'm gonna say it a million times in this video. Flat felled. Of course, when you flat fell a seam or any sort of tube like this, it's really a pain in the butt to get the outer seam on since the whole thing has been stitched together already. You have to really work around the material and make sure that you don't catch any of it up in your stitches. It is a bit of a pain in the butt. So now we get to attach it to our dress. I'm going around and pinning it to the arm side. This is not going to be a flat fell seam just because there are so many seams in here that get really bulky. Instead, once I attach this, I'm going to cover it with a strip of bias tape. And now we get to work on the collar as well. This is just a rectangle of white fabric. I've already attached 2 of our red squares to it, and then I attach our black overlap. And here we simply pin this around the collar of our dress and stitch it on. Once it's been basted on, I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of bias tape to cover it up. So I stitch the wrong side first and then I flip it over and top stitch it. And this is what the dress looks like once it's finished. Those snaps are for the jacket, which we're going to do next. So the jacket, I did not like my original jacket, so I did make a brand new pattern for this one. I draped it on my dress form just like I do most things, and I do think it came out pretty well. Here you'll notice that I am marking the front of each piece. Since this jacket doesn't connect together at the side seams or really anywhere except for the shoulders, I have to be very careful to make sure that I'm matching up all of my sides properly. So I put little F's and little B's on each of my corners, so that way I know what goes where. And now I get to gather in the top part of my sleeve to fit the bottom part of my sleeve. So we're simply gathering this together and then we're going to attach it to the rest of my sleeve. In order to get that poof that Asuna has at the top of her sleeve, I did make it a 2-part sleeve. I tried making it all in one piece at first, and that just didn't work very well. So I settled with having 2 pieces and having an adequate amount of poop. The jacket we are not going to be flat felling. This is going to be fully lined in satin, so I don't have to worry about finishing these seams. So once the poof is stitched on, I'm going to stitch the sleeve together at the side seam. And then I repeat this for all of the sleeves. So that's 2 for the outer layer and 2 for the lining. Now I put together the main part of the jacket, which is simply the 2 shoulder seams. It's a very simple. Now we're going to gather in the top of our sleeves to fit in the arm's eye of our jacket. To gather these sleeves, we're using a basting stitch, and then we pull one of the strings to get the gather effect. And we're just going to make this fit into this arm's eye. It's not a complete arm's eye since she has that little bit of a gap in the arm, but since my pattern was draped and I know that the sleeve cap fits into the arm's eye perfectly, I can just make it fit and everything will work out fine. And once it's finished, it looks pretty awesome. It feels a little bit like a Fate Stay Night type of sleeve. I've never watched it before, but that's the look. Now we're attaching this bias tape. I did make this bias tape, but I did not record it. It's like 1.5 inch bias tape. And then I'm going to go around and miter all of these corners. I haven't really talked about mitering corners before, and unfortunately this is not the video to talk about it since I really had to crunch to get this costume done in time. But I will go over it eventually, so never fear. But basically what mitering does is it makes your corners look nice and sharp and totally clean. It's a very good look. Of course, mitering all the corners on her jacket took a million years, but once it was done, I could go ahead and top stitch around the bias tape. So I'm going to pin it in place and then I will top stitch with a basic straight stitch. And once everything's been top stitched, I'm also going to satin stitch a line through the middle just for a little bit of extra detail on the bias. And now our jacket is finished. You'll notice the emblems, which are from my old costume, and I simply attached them to this one with pin backs. And now we get to move on to the little things, like the boots. The boots are shoes that I had for quite a while that just needed to be hemmed down a little bit and then painted with leather paint. Once the boots were finished, I moved on to the headgear, which is used for the AR game that they're playing. I'm making this out of some very thick craft foam. I first cut it to shape, and then I'm going to hollow out the middle of it, so that way I can put a wire in there. This wire will help me bend it to shape so it contours to my face, and will also loop around my ear to hold it into place. I hot glue the wire in, and then I go over it with a few coats of silver metallic paint. The last thing that's left to do on this costume is attach all of those buttons and a bunch of snaps. So here I am, hand sewing buttons for days. I ended up using 4 snaps on the jacket to attach it to the dress, so that way it stays in place. My last Ordinal Scale costume, the jacket shifted around a lot and I just never liked where it was sitting. But these snaps will keep it from shifting and help it stay in place. The tights, the gloves, and the wig are all from my previous Ordinal Scale costume, as well as the belt, which is made of the same dupioni as my bias tape trim, and has a Warbler belt buckle. You might notice that my belt has been signed by some of the producers and creators of SAO, because I wore my old Ordinal Scale costume when I helped with a different sorter online event. So I can't wait to hopefully add a few more signatures to that belt. And now the costume is finished. I'm really excited to wear this. Like I said, you'll see me at SAO Fest 2018 at Anime Expo. I believe it's on the 6th at 7 o'clock. So if you're at Anime Expo, be sure to show up. It'll be great to see you there. There's going to be tons of very cool guests, including the voice actor of Kirito, as well as some of the producers and some of the voice actors from the newer seasons of SAO. And there's also going to be a ton of really awesome cosplayers, including Andrew Black Swordsman as Kirito to match my Asuna. So I'm very excited, and I hope to see you all there. As always, keep sewing, stay positive, have fun, and stay hydrated. Anime Expo is going to be crazy hot. All right, I'll see you all later. Bye!